Up next, we have Sandra Cavallo Miller. Sandra Cavallo Miller is a retired academic family physician whose unlikely path to medicine included an undergraduate degree in creative writing a very long time ago. Her poetry and essays have been published in JAMA, A Piece of My Mind, Pulse, Voices from the Heart of Medicine, Embark, and Under the Sun, among others. Now she writes novels about women physicians, a subject surprisingly lacking in fiction outside of crime scene stories. She calls her mixed genre science-based medical adventure, and her trilogy about a young physician at the Grand Canyon Clinic is being published by the University of Nevada Press. When not writing, you might find her hiking with her dog or riding a horse, playing piano badly, which I am not sure if it's that bad, right? You seem to practice a lot. Or under a tree studying her favorite hobby, volcanology. Hint, beware Mount Rainier. Please welcome Sandra Cavallo Miller.
Thank you so much, Jake. Here's the novel, just so you can have a visual. I'm going to read two sections from my novel. This story is about a young woman family physician who works at the Grand Canyon Medical Clinic, which is located on the South Rim. This is a real place that has been in operation for years, and I know the stories of many doctors who have worked there. The protagonist, Dr. Abby Wilmore, has recently partnered with another physician there, a man named John Pepper. So yes, his name is Dr. Pepper. But she has been offered a summer position at Yellowstone Park for a few months, and she decides to take it. Her goals are to establish medical independence and work on her self-confidence, and to suppress her chronic anxiety on her own. The first reading is the initial paragraph of the novel, starting the scene at the Grand Canyon and establishing that there has lately been an unusual amount of seismic activity in both areas. Throughout, this seismic unrest continues to build. The second section is Abby's journey, both physical and spiritual, as she goes from the canyon to Yellowstone. Needless to say, after she reaches Yellowstone, things start happening. So here's the beginning paragraph. Spring came to the canyon, the last snow aged, going gray and disappearing little by little, and soon green spears pushed up through the rocky soil. The black mice lost the sharp edge of frost, and people began putting away winter coats. Miles deeper, far below the tinted layers of stone, miles below even the great dark river that twisted through the red chasms, the little broken shelves of the planet's crust shifted and collided, sending out vibrations, rocky ripples. Vibrations too faint for humans to feel, but the seismographs caught them and the needles waggled, tracing a jagged image of moving stone. Geologists sat up and took notice. The next section depicts Abby's trip, her initial trip and transition, as she says a temporary farewell to the canyon country and her partner. It's mostly a meditative journey, but if you've ever driven hundreds of miles alone through canyon country, you know how this feels. The night before leaving, Abby slept uneasily and regretted her decision, unable to recapture that burning need to prove something, feeling his warmth alongside and missing him already. She felt numb and isolated, like one of the canyon mesas, a dull chunk of stone standing alone, brainlessly unaware of itself and its past. He arose with her at dawn, and she knew he sensed her doubt. They stood by her loaded car, the air heavy with pine and musk. "Don't do this, questioning yourself," he said. "It's a bad old habit. This will be a great experience, and I'm a little envious." I know, you're right, as usual." She clung to him for a moment, feeling lost. "If you get tired, pull off and rest, or take a nap. It's a lot of miles, promise me." "I promise." She pulled back and saw his troubled blue eyes and knew it was time. She smiled now, reached up and fingered his flannel collar. "Now, don't take this wrong or anything, but I think there's a small chance, a really tiny chance, that I might actually sort of love you a little bit." She paused. They had hardly used the word. He took a breath to speak, but she hurried on. "Don't worry, not very much, and not all the time. Just every now and then, like for a few seconds." He laughed and wrapped his arms around her, planting a kiss. "I might actually sort of love you a tiny little bit too, part of the time," he said thickly. He put her down and nearly pushed her through the open car door. "You'd better leave fast." Abby sniffed and scrambled into her car. jamming the seatbelt home. Swallowing hard, she backed the car quickly. The last thing she wanted was for him to see tears. She watched him in the mirror, standing in the road with his hands crammed in his pockets until she rounded the curve. Stop it, she told herself. She sniffed again and blinked. By the time she entered the highway, her eyes were dry, and she made herself think of the journey, all the adventure to come. Embrace it, she reminded herself. Those words formed her mantra the day she arrived at the canyon, filled with anxiety almost 2 years ago. She could do it again, couldn't she? At first, her trip felt counterproductive, miles of broken canyons and dry plains. To reach Wyoming, she must first drive backwards, then up to Page, before swinging west to Kanab and moving through Utah. As the crow flew, it was only 70 miles to Kanab, but by land, she must drive nearly 200 miles because the highways did not go where she needed them. Getting around the Grand Canyon was never a simple task. She felt caught in a stony maze, finding the way out. Normally, she would stop and enjoy the vibrant Navajo trading post at Cameron, maybe find a silver necklace, contemplate the little Colorado River with its scanty flow, headed for greater exploits, but she kept on driving. Willow Springs, Bitter Springs, Page. Normally, she would pause to contemplate the vista of Lake Powell, think about the drowned, devastated canyons and Edward Abbey, but she only lingered long enough to pump gas. She suddenly laughed out loud, repeating her favorite lines from Edward Abbey. Saving the world is only a hobby. Most of the time I do nothing. Big Water, Kanab, Panguitch. The miles vanished under her tires, the mindless rhythm of road and sky, moving farther and farther away. She didn't expect how long she could go without thinking, without even feeling, absorbing the crusty landscape, the jumbles of orange and rusty stone, the morphing clouds, soaring and melting, rising and collapsing. A melancholy peace moved through her, focusing on things more vast than her trifling life. Beaver, meadow, Spanish Fork. She recited the subforms of cumulus, watching them all day, floating across the cornflower sky. The low, small cumulus humulus, the puffy cumulus mediocris, the fat rising cumulus congestus, and finally the commanding cumulonimbus, far away on the horizon, dragging a dark purple drape of rain. That night she called Pepper, a long talk, a good talk, but neither said the word this time, as if using it too often might spoil it, might alter the alchemy. Up early, Abby slipped into her car like a hand into a comfortable glove. As the miles slid by and she crossed into Idaho, she felt the first stirring of excitement. Pocatello, Idaho Falls, Sugar City, and finally West Yellowstone, bustling with summer tourists, every street brimming with campers and families and hikers, every car and truck and RV bristling with backpacks and tents and fishing rods, tourist buses crowding the lanes and coughing exhaust. Not so different from the Grand Canyon, just new hazards. Where the canyon was deep, Yellowstone was wide, covering 2 million acres. How curious it felt to go from a vertical to a horizontal park. The landscape shifted quickly to pine trees, the river, and tight canyons. Abby drove slowly toward Old Faithful, with her pulse quickening, trying to watch the road as she craned to see the forest and blighted landscape, the bright blue sky over the strange, steaming terrain. She had forgotten the canyon. She pulled into the complex where the large Old Faithful Inn stood prominently, flags fluttering along the top. Walking across the pavement, Abby accosted 2 ravens, having a bird party at a parked motorcycle. The ravens had teased open a pack and carefully pulled items out, dropping them and hopping down to peck them with their thick black beaks, crooning their approval in a croaky murmur. A sock, a tube of lip balm, and a candy wrapper lay scattered at their feet. Abby shooed them off and stuffed the items away, but the moment she moved on, they flapped back, plucking again at the zipper and tilting their shiny heads as if inviting her to try again, that they could keep this game up all day. It somehow felt like a welcoming committee. A strange noise made her pause, a hiss and splash, then nothing. It came again, louder, and Abby noticed a crowd around a chalky, fuming space. The slope behind it smoked, desolate, draped in white and yellow drippings. Then the fizz accelerated and a tall gout of steam and spray shot high up, splashing back down noisily onto the rock. Nice, Abby thought. That must be Old Faithful itself. Impressive, although she thought it would be more dramatic. The spray settled. She thought it was over, when a harsh hiss rose from the ground and steam and water burst up far up into the sky, cascading and rising. Bright white in the sunlight, the spearing chevrons of water climbed over each other, soaring over 100 feet and reverberating like a waterfall as it crashed back down. A warm mist drifted against her, sulfurous, an odor from another world. Abby tried to imagine the boiling water just beneath her, the now empty chamber that would soon refill and spout again, and the deeper mass of magma underlying the entire area. The geyser dwindled and disappeared, the water streaming hotly across the ground. Abby pulled herself away and walked under the heavy timbers into the Old Faithful Inn, catching her reflection in the glass door. She hadn't even known she was smiling. Thank you.
I'm smiling too, but I knew it. Thank you so much, Sandra. I know it because I can see myself doing it too, right? And I have my own face. Thank you so much, Sandra, for that.